I do a very terrible job at social media. I figured I'd give you guys an update on the 190 and what's been going on since it's been more than a year. Still coming along. Went to the metal shop. I pretty much flew out to London to compare against an actual Evo 1. I'm trying to keep it true as much as possible, I guess you can say, even though it's not an official Evo 1. It's still a 2.316 valve, still has the 5-speed, all that type of stuff. Having the interior leather reconditioned, I'm having inside the engine bay painted. It should be done in about a week or two. I should have it pulled in. And from that point, I can start putting the drivetrain back together and doing all the little things I had to do. It's been a little tough making decisions in terms of what I wanted to do. I'm seeing a lot of people with basic 192.6s doing 55 swaps in them, 63 swaps in them, putting the kit on it and calling it a race car. I'm noticing a lot of things are not going in terms of the details. Even though it's a well-fitted kit, there were some modifications that had to be done. People making wavy carbon fiber, putting it on, and bad fitment. Noticing that people are not putting even the inside fender well in it because the plastic doesn't really fit necessarily the same way. A lot of little details that people don't really care about or pay attention to in terms of quality because race car, everyone calls it race car. And they're moving away from what the car is supposed to be, and putting a big fat motor in the front is not the way to do it. It becomes a pig of a car, very front end heavy. The car is very light as it is. And if you wanted to pick up a car, just go get yourself an E30 M3. A lot of flex in those chassis, a lot of rear end coming out. People think more horsepower, higher revving means better. That's not what the 190 is about. They're changing the character of the car and just saying it's better because it's newer. I don't know if that's necessarily the case or if it's because of the impossibility of getting the parts because there are none. It's easier to get something cheaper, more powerful, easier, things of that nature. It took me 6 months just to get the valve guides for the head, so a day worth of work for 6 months of waiting time. That's just one example. I ended up mini tubbing the car, not just in the rear like they do on the kits, but in the front as well. Reason being is you can run 18x9s on them. When I flew out to London to see the original Evo 1 race car, I talked to some of the engineers out there and we discussed, I guess, difference of opinion. Obviously it's a full race car, so they don't have any brake booster, they don't have any power steering, they don't have any of those types of components in there, no AC. I ended up having to modify the haunches to get the AC to work, relocating the horn, doing things of that nature, deleted the wiper nozzle, deleted the windshield wiper fluid, deleting a whole bunch of things, but still trying to keep it track-esque. I don't want an all-out race car and I don't want an everyday driver. And in the meantime, waiting for this project to be done, obviously the metal work took longer than I expected and cost more. Because the front clip is now removable. I did some chromoly reinforcement bars in the suspension to try to mimic the Evo 1 suspension geometry and chassis flex. So pretty much in the meantime, I've been driving around the CLK 63 as my daily, as convertible. I couldn't really wait for the 190 because it was taking forever. So I bought a CLK Black Series just to kind of fill the void until the 190 comes back. So now I have the 190 Evo 1 coming in next week. We parked here. I'll keep the Black Series in here, and I'll put the CLK somewhere else, figure it out. It's too clean and too nice to park it outside. So anyways, that's what happens, first world problems. Yeah, I guess I can make another video with the car actually here in terms of real update. Paint looks fantastic. The kit could have gone the way it was, but there's obviously a little bit of gaps, things of that nature. What I've noticed a lot of people doing in terms of the body shop is they are molding in these rear quarter panels. I don't know why they do it. I figured it's easier in terms of actually having the body lines be straight, blocked on to make it look good. The one thing I did notice on the actual Evo is that the rear flare for the bumper is actually molded in. So the reason why they did that is because that rear bumper, actually when you cut it, it's missing one of the mounting points. So what I ended up doing was I kept it separate. I had a custom metal bracket integrated into the bumper, so it's still removable. I feel like that way, if I have to bump into anything or one of the flares crack, then it looks good. Another mistake I've been seeing on some of the other builds, I guess I can say mistake, not a mistake. I mean, you can do whatever you want, it's your car, it's your preference. This is obviously a passion project for me and a lot of love going into it, so it's a money pit. The thing is, the metal fenders, they paint differently. So if you're using a primer that is not a two-part urethane primer, and you paint your fiberglass and your metal the same thing, you get waves in the fiberglass, especially when it gets warm. I've seen some people put the carbon fiber hood and carbon fiber trunk on. From the same place I got my kit from, it's just, I've ordered carbon from them before, and it's not the greatest, I guess you can say. It's more of a carbon overlay instead of actual carbon. There are some people who are trying to do really, really good working carbon, which I got my center console from. They are potentially going to make door panels and front and rear trunk. If they do that, I'll do it. The other thing is when you get the ones that are fiberglass, carbon fiber overlay for the hood on the 190s are super duper heavy, so they stay shut. Even when they sell you the hood, they'll tell you that you should probably get the latches, which I guess you can do, but I figured that kind of takes it a little bit more into the race specter of things when I'm trying to keep it with the original hood latches and stuff, just to make sure it stays shut, because they don't guarantee with the flex in the hood for the fiberglass and the carbon fiber blend that will actually stay together. But yeah, ultimately when I get it back, hopefully engine trans go in, whole drivetrain will be new, polish the stainless steel exhaust. It'll look very similar to the way it did prior in my first video. So I don't expect people to really understand the level of work or time that goes into it, or trying to get the ABS to function, or trying to put these CLK brakes on it. There's definitely a lot of things behind the scenes, and I feel like that's kind of what makes the difference between what my build is, or I guess you can call restoration, I don't know, versus what other people are doing with claiming everything to be a race car. I've seen 845 motors in them, which is pretty cool. Rear wheel drive, not really usable. Seen 55 motors in them, not really usable. Seen 63 motors in them. I've seen LS swaps going in them. I've seen JZ motors swapped in them. I feel like what people are trying to do is just have it look like a 190 and not really be a 190. That's not what it's all about, in my opinion. If you want one of those cars, go get one of those cars. I completely understand money is a factor. So can't really knock you for whatever you got, especially if you got donor cars. You make it work, but you're not getting the 190 experience when you do that. If you want to experience one of those V8s, get a Black Series. If you want to do something else, get one of those more expensive cars. Not to sound condescending, I mean, I never came from money, so I guess you gotta work for it, but yeah, good luck to everybody on their builds. I see a whole bunch of stuff out there, pretty cool. The actual Evo 1 also had 18-inch Evo 6-spoke wheels on it. They are the Unilug wheels, which go on there. I didn't want to do the conversion, mainly because it takes like something like 400 foot-pounds of torque and a special tool to put it on. Cross-threading is high. Material's not even made of steel, it's made of aluminum. Not very smart to kind of put on the car. I did find a shop that will custom make me 18-inch wheels that are just like the Evos. They're about $6 grand, not including shipping. But that's the price you pay when you want to be doing legitimate work. People cut corners and claim race car, like I said earlier, or they get replicas or whatever the hell it is and put it on there. And to the untrained eye, I get it. It looks the same. Even my car is not a concourse car because it's not a museum car. I've obviously modified it with the suspension and the exhaust and the brakes and the wheels and the body kit. But I still think it's still a 190 at its nature and at its heart. And I think that's the whole point, is to keep it a momentum car, very similar to the NSX when Senna drove that and drove the 190. I think that was kind of the attitude of the day, is to make something reliable. I've seen people put Mega Squirt EFI on cars, and I do not knock that. I think that looks amazing, especially if you do a good clean job with carbon fiber intake runners and things of that nature. But if you're making a plenum that looks like it goes on a 2JZ motor on a 190, you kind of killed the class of it. And I understand, because the people who did my metal work, they're a race shop, and they were more about the functionality than the look. So when they ended up welding my fenders up, it went too hot and ended up warping the metal a little bit. Not enough for them to notice, but enough for the body shop to notice who was doing the paint. So they had to rework the metal a little. I want to say, like, the body alone with the kit and everything, I'm already over 35K. And that's just for the install of the body kit with the metal work being done, not including any of the engine work or any of the labor that I've done. So that just gives you a small ballpark estimate of what we're looking at. Obviously I'm doing everything myself. This is not a shop, this is a garage, I live here. So it's one man, one show operation kind of thing. And I appreciate anyone who has been reaching out and helping out in terms of how to get things done, or various tools and things of that nature. Super excited to get it back. The carbon fiber front splitter, carbon fiber rear spoiler, it looks great. Got it re-cleared to make sure it doesn't yellow, because typically getting the carbon from this guy does yellow. So hopefully that prevents that. I have no intentions on ever selling the thing. Obviously it's a labor of love. I will sell these two before I sell that one. And hopefully somebody in a Toyota or Honda or Hyundai doesn't run into me on the road, because I do plan on driving it. It will ride extremely low, but it's kind of a gift to myself for my 40th birthday. So why not? Hopefully it all works out. Hopefully the harness works out. I did make an electric fan. I had to cut the water pump to make that to work. And we'll see. You know, it's not going to be done anytime soon. I don't know. When I get it back, I'll probably just go ham at it and see if I can get it all together in a month or two. But you never know. I do have the calipers and the rotors and the pads and everything for the brakes. Hopefully it works, because if it doesn't, they're non-refundable. But we'll see. Obviously lots to talk about. I'm talking too much, and we'll see what happens. But I know it's been over a year now. I started July of last year, and now we're in November. So almost a year and a half of a lot of wait time, waiting on engine parts, waiting on body shop, waiting on deliveries, especially over COVID. So we're at the final stretch. I want to say it's about 70 to 75% complete. And super stoked to get it done, so I can park it next to the ones that had like the C63 motor in it, where it's just a shell of a 190 on a C63 car. It actually drives and feels like a C63 that's supercharged. The other ones that end up putting the motors into the actual 190 chassis, that 22 gauge steel is not able to keep up with it. So even if you do the rear subframe for the SL600 or whatever you want to put in there, sure, that'll hold up, but too much chassis flex. Unless you're putting an integrated cage in there or doing something like that, you're going too far. It's not about horsepower. I mean, like, all that reinforcement and stuff, unless you're keeping a 4-cylinder with mad crazy turbo and boost and EFI and things of that nature, like they did in an actual DTM, you're going to be disappointed when you put that motor in there. And that I know for a fact, because it's been done before. Buddy of mine's done it. He's done the C36 motor, he's done the 55 motor, driven them all. Driven the E30, driven the stock, driven the modded. And the best way is actually stock. Keeping it running, keeping it reliable, keeping it cool, especially nowadays with no parts available. It makes it even harder and harder, which is why going to London to see the Evo 1 was such a treat. I didn't expect to see it, and the way they had everything there, and I got to talk to 4 or 5 different engineers who maintain and track it. We talked about different suspension setups in the rear, why they did what they did, things of that nature. But then they came to realize that I'm kind of half and half. So when I go to the race shop, they're like, oh, this is not a race car. I go to the body shop and they're like, oh, this is not a show car. It's kind of, I want both aspects to be in it, both be a race car and a show car. Like I said, race cars, they just, in real life, they're sloppily done. You might see them on Instagram and things of that nature. I've seen people install the same kits, and you'll notice if they actually took the time to put the body on right, because that front fender lip on the bumper that comes around where the headlight is, there's actually like a 2mm gap, which needs to be reshaped. Most people don't do that because it's too much work. The other thing is where you trim the front bumper to make enough space for the body kit to work, you end up practically cutting half of the stock mount off. So you have to like kind of recreate and glue that back on so that it holds on nice and tight. It's so low that with no engine, transmission, anything in the car, it pretty much touches to get on a flatbed, and that's with boards. So the height of the car without anything in it is about the height of a socket, a deep socket for an impact driver, not a regular socket. And yeah, it's gonna be cool. I don't expect to be daily driving it, but I'll daily the convertible. It's comfortable. It's got enough power. It does what it needs to do. And then I'll go between the Black Series and the Evo on the weekends. So hopefully things hold up and things go as planned. And I'll keep you guys updated, maybe even do videos as I'm putting things together. A lot of people have been telling me that it'd be interesting to watch, and I'm like, not as interesting as you think it would be.